Hey there, beloved of God, welcome to this video. We will continue immediately with our series called The Glorious and Powerful Return of Jesus Christ. And of course with an emphasis, amongst others, but with an emphasis on the march, the victorious great march through the desert led by Jesus, and with a lot of vast throng behind him of consisting for the most part of liberated Israelites. So, and of course they will exalt, they will be happy, they will be exuberant. And that's what we're talking about. And of course, while marching, eliminating left and right enemies who will try to maybe cross his path or thwart his going forth through the desert. So you need to, while I'm busy reading and telling this story, so to speak, try to picture the victorious character of this march, because this is truly something else. This will not be the Exodus on the leadership of Moses. This will be like a totally different ultimate Exodus, which is of course far superior to the previous one or the first one. Also, I wanna mention this, that while I'm going through the slides, please also picture the context, the circumstances, because as you probably know from 70 AD onwards, because of their rejection of the Messiah, Israel has been scattered across all the earth, across all nations. I would say virtually all nations. And because of that, through the centuries, they have been persecuted tremendously. I don't know if you know about that, but in so many countries where they were always oppressed. I'm talking about the Jews, right? The real Israelites with an ancestry to the 12 tribes, especially. They were persecuted tremendously, especially the 2 tribes from Judah, I have to say. The 10 tribes have pretty much assimilated themselves between the nations, or among the nations, but the 2 tribes greatly kept their kept their heritage. So they were the ones who were more persecuted more than the 10 tribes. But still, Israel as a people has been persecuted through the centuries. So that's all a fulfillment of what Jesus has prophesied through the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. Do you recognize that? The rich man depicts, of course, their religious leaders, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, but also the people of Israel who rejected their Messiah, and now still they are in the fire of persecution. That's the point. That's the point. The reality is that through the centuries, almost 2,000 years now, they have been persecuted, and since 1948 that they returned for a part to their land, is of course they have never been safe there in their own land, so to speak. Never been safe. Always they have to be on their guard for attacks from the countries surrounding them. And we know that they are all enemies toward Israel. So this is very interesting, and keep that in mind while going through this, because Jesus, the first true deliverance that they will go through will be at the return of Jesus Christ. Then he will start the whole delivering, redeeming process. So keep that in mind while we go through this story. Well, thank you for your patience. Let's go to the slides. So we went through Micah 2 verse 12 and 13, and we saw it closes by saying, "And their king shall pass before them, Yahweh at their head. That is a privilege in its own already. So we know now, very interesting, that when Moses led the Israelites towards the regions of Edom, he requested permission for them to pass through, but was denied. So in Numbers, you read about it in Numbers 20, verse 18 through 21. But the point is that Moses and later Joshua, they asked for permission to pass through on the what they call a highway there, a sort of highway. It's called the King's Highway. I repeat, very, very significant. The King's Highway through the desert. But they were denied. So they had to make their way towards Israel by means of a workaround, a very great workaround, because the kings of Moab and Ammon in the north, so again present day Jordan, they denied and they also warned Israel when they would still try to pass through the King's Highway, they would attack. So they didn't do it, Israel. They went through an alternative route, and that was quite longer toward Israel. So just for your orientation. So let's continue, because we will go in this series also, we will also talk about that highway through the desert, the King's Highway. So consequently, after being denied, Israel had to circumvent the kingdom of Edom by traveling around its borders. Deuteronomy 2 verse 29. Isn't that intriguing? Oh yes, it is. However, when Jesus returns, he will not be refused passage. Of course not. He is the king. He is the one and only king. So Jesus, the greater Moses, which is also mentioned like that, he will traverse these regions unimpeded, and rightfully so, upon the King's Highway. That's in Numbers 20, verse 17 and 22. The themes of Israel fleeing to the rugged mountains of Edom and Bosra find echoes later in Jesus' sermon on the end times, Matthew 24, where he warned that when Jerusalem is surrounded by armies, or you could also say the abomination of desolation is erected, and they see that on the Temple Mount, then let those in Judea flee into the mountains. What mountains? The mountains of Edom and Bosra. That's where they are safe. And that is Matthew 24:16 and Luke 21, verse 20 through 21. This same concept is expressed in the book of Revelation. We saw that before, which states that after the abomination of desolation is set up on the Temple Mount, and by the way, it will be happening on the Temple Mount. I also believe that the temple will be built on the Temple Mount. And if you ask me, and this is maybe very bold, but there is only one correct place where the Holy of Holies has to stand, has to be, and that's where it also was in the days of old during the Temple of Solomon, and that is exactly on the spot of the rock around which the Dome of the Rock is built. So think about that. I don't know if that will happen, obviously, but that is the spot, the one and only spot. That's what I think. But let's continue. So, again, Revelation states that after the abomination of desolation is set up on the Temple Mount, The remnant of faithful Israel, referred to as the woman, remember, Revelation 12, will flee into the wilderness, there where she has a place made ready by God, that there they may be nourishing her 1,260 days. That's verse 6 of Revelation 12. And again, I just draw your attention on the word they. Who can that be? I think it refers to the male child in verse 5, because that's the closest. So that is what they has to refer to, the male child. And since the woman refers to a group of people, faithful Israel, the male son has to refer to a group of people as well. Just think about it, and we will go through it later. Extending far beyond just Egypt and Cush, the psalm culminates with a grand summons to all the nations. So now it's expanded. A grand summons to all the nations of the earth to sing praises to the glorious cloud rider. Whereas the opening verses of Psalm 68, 1 through 6, call upon Israel only to sing enthusiastic praises to God, now this invitation to praise becomes universal, encompassing all nations. Let's go. Verse 32 and 33. Kingdoms of the earth, sing to Elohim. Make melody to Yahweh, to the rider in the heavens of heavens aforetime. Behold, he shall send out his voice, a strong voice like a trumpet. Same thing almost. And 34 through 35 says, ascribe strength to Elohim. Over Israel is his augustness, and his strength is in the skies. Fear inspiring is Elohim from his grand sanctuary. The El of Israel, he gives strength and staunchness to his people. Blessed be Elohim. Of course, this is a great exaltation that is to be inspiring the nations to also join in those who are who came to the, let's say, knowledge or realization of the truth. Yet, despite being the God of all nations, he continues to identify himself as the God of Israel, whose majesty resides over Israel. By the way, of course, I'm talking about the end times here, right? Not now. This is not about now at all. Again, Israel is not God's people here today. Nothing of that sort for almost 2,000 years already. So there is no people of God except, you could say, the members of the body of Christ, but they are not called people of God as such. But again, there is no distinction between Jew or any racial distinction. There is no distinction even between male and female nowadays, in spiritually speaking, of course. So this is the era of the body of Christ, in which the body of Christ is being formed. And when it's finished, then they will be snatched away, and then from that moment onwards, Israel will be the people of God again, and God will resume his program with Israel. So just to see the picture more and more clearly, let's continue. The substance of this magnificent psalm, authored by David, furnishes us with what can be indisputably regarded as some of the majestic and emotionally stirring prophetic imagery found throughout the scriptures. And that is true, of course, relatively, especially pertaining to Israel and the end times. This psalm grants us a glorious preview of a most eagerly anticipated and long awaited event in time. You can say that again. So herein we are, so in this psalm of the great procession, we are afforded a glimpse into the parousia, or the presence of Jesus, the intricacies of which are vastly expanded beyond what was previously unveiled in either the blessing of Moses or the song of Deborah. It is expanded upon vastly. It is therefore unsurprising that the overarching tone of the psalm is one of unbridled enthusiasm. Enthusiasm, is that the word? And celebration. Just as this psalm was employed by ancient Israelites to commemorate God's mighty acts in the past and anticipate his forthcoming great acts, so too may it serve again to remind God's people of what is soon to unfold in the not too distant future. And the last slide about the great procession through the eyes of David. May the faithful people of Israel soon rediscover this multifaceted, priceless gem in the Psalm 68, and may we all comprehend the enthusiasm and anticipation that gripped King David, causing him to dance wildly before the mere representation, that's the Ark of the Covenant, of the one whom they will personally witness in the future when he returns in blazing fire and great glory. Let's continue in the next section of this study. And then we will highlight this one, a special wilderness highway. Will there be actually a special wilderness highway? Oh yes. But let's go through it. It's all very interesting that what will transpire on the earth in the not too distant future. Once again, Yahweh will depart from Sinai, march through the desert of Edom, and rescue his people, of course, through Jesus Christ. It was during the time of the prophets that these expectations solidified within the Jewish consciousness. The prophet Isaiah in particular made substantial contributions to this prophetic tradition. However, despite the covenantal chastisements, the Israelites have still not yet learned their lesson. As a result, many of the inhabitants of Israel will be taken captive to surrounding nations, or will flee as refugees into the desert wilderness. That will happen, sadly. Let's see. I think I'm going to stop here and then continue in this flow, starting with this very slide in the next video. So thank you for watching. Don't want to make them too long, those videos, so that you don't sit through it too long. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.